I talk to Sky at least twice a day. He normally calls me on my lunch break at work and then before bed. I've noticed since Sky's been sentenced, his attitude has changed a lot. He is now more concerned about the things that he have done and the long-term effects that it has on the girls. He is constantly worried about how this is going to affect their lives, especially long term, and of how they have to deal with life now with what has happened. Sky shows great remorse to me when he's on the phone about what has happened. He pretty much hates himself about it.
He has changed a lot. Mentally, he is scared to death. He is scared straight. And I would bet my own life on it that he'll never touch another drug or a kid in his entire life. And he is really depressed about what he's done. He owns it. He admits it. He regrets it so much.
Sky's very depressed when I talk to him. He's always talking about how he wishes things could have been done differently, things would have happened differently. His most concern is about the girls and what happened to them, but he is also concerned about his own kids because he does have two kids himself. Long-term effects on everyone is what he's concerned about. He tells me all the time he's sorry about what happened. He tells me all the time that he wishes he didn't do it. He doesn't really blame anything anymore besides himself. He is constantly blaming himself over it.
I'm Edward Baker. I have a PhD in clinical psychology and I'm a forensic psychologist, and I was tasked to evaluate Sky Davis. I met with him on February of this year, February 25th, regarding a pre-sentence evaluation for sex offender risk assessment. Even though he reported that he didn't remember the events, he is not doubting his fiance and the girls who accused him of that. In fact, he appeared to be extremely remorseful about the events. And just in my experience in working with individuals who have substance abuse problems, especially using Xanax or an anxiolytic and alcohol, is that they often go into a blackout phase where they engage in behavior and they don't quite remember what happened. It doesn't excuse the behavior, but it does help one understand the situation in which it occurred. So based on those reports of him and just doing a review of the incident and the criminal case, and also having him perform some psychological testing, and we also do like personality testing, substance abuse screening, and also do some evaluations related specifically to sex offending. So we compare him to people who are known sex offenders, and so uses several of those factors to determine a risk level. So in general, his risk factors were relatively low for when you compare him to other people who've engaged in the same kind of behavior. There were some risk factors involved that are concerning, and mainly the substance abuse issues were the ones that I deemed to be kind of the most salient with his situation. On some of the positive factors, he didn't have any overt risk factors for long-term antisocial behavior. Even though his scales were a little bit high, his history indicated that he was more of a stable individual with a job that he'd worked at regularly, in a stable relationship with his fiance for several years, and no criminal history other than a minor history when he was an adolescent. I think he was sent to the Elkins Mountain School for truancy issues, but that was when he was a teenager. So the basis of my evaluation on his risks was related to the adjudicated plea he made, and the comparison to that with other people who have similar types of offenses. So overall, we rate them as good, fair, and poor, and sometimes even excellent if there's very little things. So I gave him a good prognosis. Recommended that, given his situation, that he would be a good candidate for outpatient sex offender therapy, and also substance abuse counseling I recommended as well, as those two go together in his case.
He has been amazing. He, when we first got together, after only being together for 8 months, he moved in with me and helped me take care of my grandpa in hospice. So he basically watched me and himself watch my grandpa die while we were caring for him. So he went through that with me. My oldest son was 11 months old when I got with him, so he's technically not his. He became his father. He's been there every step of the way since then because my oldest son's father doesn't have anything to do with him. He's been an amazing dad. He's always been that all-around go-to dad, wants to do everything, be interactive with the kids. He's just been amazing. He works. He's always had a full-time job. He's always treated me great. He never done anything to make me feel like he would do anything like this. He's a really good person. He treated me like a queen, basically. He would give me what I wanted, give the kids what they wanted. We never wanted for anything. We've always had what we needed. And he was always there to help, regardless of the situation, whether it was, someone passing away in the family, or if it was a school function or a family event. He always wanted to be there. He wanted to be involved. I don't believe Sky would ever want to hurt anyone like that again. He was too good of a person. He doesn't like hurting people. He was never the type to ever hurt people. He was always the first one to help anyone that needed anything. You asked and he was there.
In the beginning, he did blame the drugs and alcohol. He kept saying, if I didn't do that, this wouldn't have never happened. And I said, Sky, you have to stop and think. You can't blame it on anything else. You did what you did. And you have to admit it to yourself, to God. I said, you have to learn how to pray and admit what you did. You have to own it. And he says, I do, Mom. I said, well, you have to quit blaming it on anything else, whether it's drugs and alcohol or anything. You can't blame it on anything else. It was you that done this. But he got through that, and he now owns it 100%. He hates himself for it, but he knows what he did was him. That was something that nobody could have ever imagined that Sky Davis would do, especially Sky Davis.